Good morning, everyone. This is Pradeep here again, and welcome you back to the second day of the STC conference. Today we have some exciting keynotes, 4 keynotes and 9 best paper presentations as well. And yesterday, as you have noticed, we spoke about two important aspects. One was how artificial intelligence are going to play a key role, and what are the elements and enablers that we need to take care at an organization level. However, the question still remains as to how do we ensure that quality assurance plays a very strategic role in the resilience of an organization and in building a resilient organization, especially in the kind of times we are in. And how does the customer really perceive our function and our work, and how does it influence the customer experience? And then we also will look at some of the trends that are coming up, where we will have team from Neotis, which will join us to present performance trends, and what should we watch out for in the horizon. And we also have 9 best practices in 3 different tracks like yesterday. And the key highlight for today in the evening, we will conclude with our awards function, where we would announce the top 3 papers out of the 22 top who were selected. We will also explain the procedure that we undertook to select those top 3, as well as the top 22. That way we would be in a position to conclude the event for today. And as always, I would like to thank all our sponsors, P. Cloudy, Neotis, who are our platinum sponsors, Tricentis, and QA Infotech, who are our digital supporters, and Zip Event, who has been very kind enough to support us with the platform and all the support that we are seeing in running this event seamlessly. I also would like to place an acknowledgement for some of our key supporters and also the jury members across the team who have taken active interest in making this event very successful. Especially to note in the supporters are our strongest supporter is Capgemini, who has been very kind enough to submit a lot of papers, as well as support us with the event in terms of the format and how we exactly conduct it. And we also would like to thank Deloitte, CGI, who have volunteered to help us with all the screening rounds. And as always, great friends to work with and great team members who have been able to contribute to the content that you're able to see. So without much ado, let me introduce Lisha Rakesh. Lisha is a first timer to the STC conference, but I'm sure she is no new person to the field. Lisha is currently Director for Financial Services at Capgemini, and she has been a veteran from the quality assurance space, having been involved with various organizations like Signity in the past. She's an accomplished professional with over 15 years of experience and has a strong understanding of process, solution design, as well as service delivery for some of the complex engagements that she has seen through. Today, she's going to talk about how we can make quality assurance an enabler for business resilience and how we can make that happen in reality. Over to you, Lisha.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pradeep, for the really nice introduction and the warm welcome. I'll just share my screen so that you can see my presentation.
Yep.
I hope my screen is there, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Pradeep. I think, I was a part of some of the sessions yesterday, and I think the whole way in which this conference is being conducted remotely, which has become the total new norm, is absolutely awesome. So please pass on my kudos and thank you to the team. A very good morning to all of you, and thank you for joining the session today, where I will be presenting my perspective or my views on a very interesting and a very relevant topic for today, which is QA. how can QA become an enabler for business resilience? I hope you've all had your morning coffees and you are like bracing yourselves and looking forward to the sessions today. I, in particular, am extremely excited, very, very thrilled to be a part of STC. Because I've been a part of STC as an attendee for a number of times, but this is the first time, as Pradeep was mentioning, that I'm attending this platform as a keynote speaker, so you can really understand the levels of excitement. Now, in today's session, I would like to cover a few points because we just have 30 minutes and this is a very broad topic, but there are some things that I would like to cover. The first and the foremost is some learnings or what 2020 has taught us, especially me. The importance and the interconnection of business, IT, and QA, which are working in tandem to support the kind of customer expectations that we have in the new age customers' mind. Then we have a WQR, which we just published last month, which is the World Quality Report, which talks about the trends in the market and the industry and how the QA industry is moving. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And it has got a special section which is dedicated to the trends in QA and how QA is going to look like in the post-pandemic world. And I thought that is very, very key and very close to the topic that I'm speaking on today. So I thought it would be interesting for you to have some insights from the WQR. There's also an actionable, a very practical plan that you can take back with you to build a more robust and resilient business within your organizations. Now, when I started planning for this session or when I was preparing for this session, I asked a couple of people, how do I start my session, right? Because that's like the key thing and it sets the tone. Some people said it would always be good to get started with a joke or maybe a personal story, an anecdote, some kind of an incident that happened which is related to the topic. But what I thought was, why not share some insights on what I have particularly learned in 2020 in the past few months. Now, 2020 has been, at least for me, a year of realizations. And I think each one of us, I'm sure each one of us have realized some key lessons this year. For me, there are three things that I realized. The first was the importance of human interactions, because that is something that I at least always took for granted. The coffee dates with friends, the tea breaks with colleagues, and all of that, during the meeting. So you're jumping from one meeting to the another, and then you say, let's get a coffee quickly. So those kind of things, they seem like such a distant and cherished memory these days, right? Even though we keep connected through video calls, we are on, a platform which keeps us connected. We can see each other, but the personal touch is something that I particularly miss a lot. The second thing, which I think everybody realized, was how important it is to embrace the technology, right? When people were distant, what brought us together was technology. Technology was the glue that held us all together, ensured that we kept sane and we did not go berserk. So that became very, very important. Our team breaks became virtual. We had casual coffee sessions with our friends. And then, the biggest change was the schools moving to online classes. I think, honestly, that is something which is helping me refresh my grade two concepts of multiplication and division. I go through that every morning. But in a span, if you see the past few months, you will see that in a span of about 2 to 3 months, right? Everything, and I repeat, every single thing, including my neighborhood grocery shop, went digital. They went online. The third and the most important aspect on realization was the importance of resilience. And when I talk about resilience, of course, my topic says business resilience, but I talk about resilience at all levels. There is a psychological aspect to it, an emotional aspect, emotional resilience, which is very important. There is physical resilience to fight with the calamity or the disaster that we are facing right now. And then the most important, which drives the global economy, is the business resilience. Now, resilience, without a doubt, I think you will all agree that is the buzzword for 2020, along with the business continuity that we talk about. And it is defined very simply put across, it is defined as the capability of an entity, be it a person or an organization, to resist or bounce back from any adverse situation and not break under the pressure. So that is what resilience is. Now, business resilience, on the other hand, is defined as the capability of the organization, of any organization, to quickly adapt to the dynamic environment that we are facing and without causing any disruption to the delivery or to the operations, which could impact its customers in any adverse manner. So it's basically, if you look at it simply put together, it's how quickly you can bounce back because, you know, pandemics will happen. There would be some or the other disaster which will hit us, right? You cannot prevent all. You cannot be prepared for everything. But what you can prepare yourself is to ensure that if you get hit by something, you're able to bounce back, right? So, and these disruptions that I'm talking about, these disruptions could be anything. It could be a planned disruption, something like, you know, a system migration that you're doing, or something like a consolidation resulting from a merger or an acquisition. But it could be an unplanned disaster also, or an unplanned disruption also, something like, you know, a cyber attack or a natural disaster for which you haven't prepared. Now, business continuity, resilience have become conjoined terms. They have become extremely important, and I think they're being discussed at every organization's, strategic meetings. Everybody's talking about how they can make their businesses more resilient, how can they bounce back, how they can continue with the operation so that there is absolutely no impact on our customer. If you look at the past few months, you would agree that we have managed to do fairly well on continuing the business. So we could definitely, you know, ensure that the business kept running, most of the businesses at least. But now I think it's time, now that we are set, we are in the BAU mode, it's time to build the resilience across the business ecosystem. So we are much, much more prepared for the future. Now, we all are living in a hyper-connected world, right? Where the businesses must be available 24 cross 7. Always on has become, the norm. It's the status quo, and downtime anywhere, for any small amount of time also is increasingly expensive and unacceptable. The new age customer, which is having a very fickle mind, right? The new age customer expects to access our systems at all time from anywhere in the world and at a lightning fast speed without any security or performance challenge. Customers are demanding experiences which are pushing the business limit and are very, very difficult to achieve, right? They want a really cool user interface. They want seamless integration between platforms. They want quick responses and whatnot. I remember the times when we earlier used to go to a bank, right? And we used to stand in a queue and we had to wait for like 15-20 minutes for the cashier or the person to be free to carry out our transaction, and it was absolutely acceptable. Nobody complained, everybody was okay with that. Now that the bank is on my smartphone, a downtime of even 5 minutes is unacceptable. If the systems go down due to any reason, trust me, especially if it's a business facing or a user facing system, everyone's focus is on how to get them back up and available to the users ASAP, right? Right from the junior most engineer to the CXO level. So everybody's thinking, how can we get the users back onto the system? Everybody is in a call trying to get things moving so that we can get back up. So how do the businesses ensure that the customer expectations are met and they remain happy? So we don't want to be the one on the left side, which is very, very sad. We want to have customers which are happy like the one you see on the right side. Here is where we from the IT world come into the picture, the IT superheroes, right? And IT and the software capabilities must protect the business while they should also innovate with and for the business. Delivering what the business needs is very important. Delivering at a very high speed is even more important. But the most important aspect is to deliver something which is fit for purpose. It is robust, it is resilient, and meets the customer expectation. And this is where the QA plays a very crucial or a pivotal role. While QA is everybody's responsibility, and that is another buzz. Not I would not call it as a buzz word, but it's a buzz sentence now. That QA is everybody's responsibility. But QA teams act as a custodian of that quality and ensure that the IT teams are churning out error-free code to deliver business functionality and applications which make our customers very happy and satisfied. QA has transitioned from being an independent, siloed, and nice to have function towards becoming an integral part of the software delivery team. QA is not just limited to executing test cases and finding defects, but is also enabling the entire team, including the developers, to really achieve their quality objectives. When I started my career as a tester 15, 16 years back, we were told what to test, how to test, when you should be testing it, and which defects you can log and which defects you cannot even log. Right. So that was the level of control that the QA teams had. Today, the testers are much more smarter. They use techniques like TDD to guide the developers how to create the code, how much code he should be writing. Right? So a complete shift in the spectrum, if you see. QA has become more mature now. The tests are more optimized by utilizing the artificial intelligence capabilities. Automation has become very, very effective, very intelligent. We are talking about self-healing automation scripts, right? Where any change in the system will trigger the change in the automation scripts also. And in general, the overall QA today provides a very wide coverage on aspects like functional, usability, security, performance, accessibility, compatibility, whatnot, right? So everything, QA is encompassing everything. And because of this maturity, QA is no longer seen as a supporting discipline, but a function which holds paramount importance and acts as an orchestrator for quality. I'll give you a real life example of how we contributed to tons of cost saving and effort saving for one of the global banks, which is our key customer. Right. So this bank has an incident management team which depended on the manual analysis of incidents to understand the hotspots. We reviewed the historical data. We did an analysis on the production incidents to identify the patterns and the keywords to categorize the incidents. There was an algorithm which was used to, get this whole process automated. And using this capability, using this artificial intelligence and machine learning, what we were able to, we trained it, and then we have been able to process 800,000 plus incidents till date, resulting in the effort saving of approximately, about 1,400 man days and bringing down the turnaround time of the incident analysis from months to weeks now. Isn't this absolutely phenomenal, right? I mean, I could have never imagined that this could be the case 16 years back when I was still writing test cases and automating scripts. This is exactly how QA has become more mature and is contributing to make the businesses run faster, and accelerating the speed of digital transformation and bringing the costs down. Now, since business resilience is closely related to disruptions or adversity, what better example than COVID-19? I mean, COVID-19 has impacted each one of us, some more than the others. But the impact of COVID-19 on businesses, IT, QA has been so severe that we had to do an extensive study during the research that we did for WQR 2020. And I wanted to present. There is a whole section which has been dedicated to QA in the post-pandemic world, and I wanted to bring some key insights that came out from the WQR. Now, the top part of the slide that you see, that talks about our observation, what we saw, what we heard from you. And the next one, the bottom part, talks about the recommendations that we provide to our customers, to our industries, so that they can be better prepared. Now, the key changes or the key insights that came out were the first thing was the changes that were brought by the pandemic vary from sector to sector, right? And they showed a very close relation to the working practices of that particular industry. For example, several organizations which were in the manufacturing and the financial services world, they were very slow with their cloud adoption. Primarily because of the scale and also because of a certain fear of going to the cloud. Now, what happened with such organizations were they were severely impacted, right? In some cases, they even had to go ahead and change the whole business model that they operated in. QA is becoming mainstream function. It's no longer, something which is very new. Everybody knows that. We have a seat on the table. We are driving things. Hence, the collaboration aspects become extremely, extremely important. Right? QA needs to collaborate beyond the testing remit. They need to talk to the businesses. We are talking to the developers. We are talking to the release and deployment management teams, and we are trying to foster a one team culture within the program to drive the desired quality first mindset. And for this, it is extremely important for us to enable the QA teams with the right resources, the right tools, so that they can collaborate more and more, and then deliver better quality products. Since everybody is working from home, people are remote, the digital transformation for all the industries across sectors is running at a very high and a very accelerated pace, which is bringing a major shift on the focus of QA from functional to other areas like usability, security, etc. Right. So earlier, when we used to talk about testing, and then I'm talking about close to like last few years also, we primarily talk about testing from a functionality point of view. What are my functional tests? How can we automate those test cases? Now people are talking, definitely functionality needs to be there, but people are talking about the usability. How is the user experience of your application or your system? How secure it is? Because we're talking about a lot of data transfer that happens, a lot of data which is very, very confidential, right? That happens. So, how secure are my users if they use your platform? Of course, the cloud adoption has increased many folds. Everybody wants to migrate to the cloud, from the cloud, from one cloud to another. So all of these concepts around the migration validation, right, compliance testing, multi-tenancy testing are coming in the forefront, which are making it more and more complex for the QA team, and they have to definitely become more mature and more innovative in the kind of work that they deliver. Automation has always been a key focus area and continues to remain critical. However, the automation now that we talk about is not just limited to the test execution, right? Automation is being done throughout the testing lifecycle, starting from the designing of the test cases. We have a lot of solutions which help in creating model based requirements, wherein you create a process flow or a workflow, and then it gets automatically translated into very, very smart manual test cases which can feed into your automation tool and framework. You churn out your automated scripts which are again self-healing in nature. So this is the kind of maturity that we're talking about, right? The automation being done on testing is robust, it is intelligent, it is AI driven. We're no longer talking about 100% automation. We're talking about what are the key candidates that we can automate in order to ensure that we are, gaining the right ROIs, wherein the automation throughput is giving me the right results, right? We're also talking about the automation throughout the value chain, where the automation is used to spin up test environments, right? So, environments and data has always been a persistent problem for organizations as well as QA. Now we have solutions in the market where you submit a request for a new environment, go and grab a coffee, and by the time you're back, 99.9% chances are that the environment is ready for you. You have the credentials and the link in your email, and then you can just log in and start working on it. There are multiple test data generators or tools which quickly get the data ready for you for testing. I remember the times when we used to sit back and we used to wait for the customer to give us scrub data from production, or we used to search data, creating queries, running queries on the database, and all of that. So I think all of those days are gone, and it's time that you move into these automated solutions which are already there, which can be easily customized and implemented into your environment. One of the key things that you see here on this graph is the measure of work for the testing and QA teams need to go through a change. I mean, we have been talking about very orthodox measures, right, of how we understand the productivity of the team, whether the teams are productive, whether the team productivity is increasing, and so on and so forth, right? Now, productivity can no longer be defined on the number of test cases created, the number of test cases executed, or the number of defects that were detected by a particular tester, right? It's time to move out and come out of the shadows of the quantity aspect, move to a more qualitative measure of productivity and outcomes delivered by the team. So, for example, look at the defect leakage, look at how frequently your defects are being resolved. Those kind of aspect. Don't make your measures count based. But at the same point of time, when you talk about the metrics, it's also important that you have a very clear and a very clean reporting. We had a customer, and that's another bank that I'm talking about, that was going through a very big digital transformation. When we looked into their test management tool, which was ALM, we saw that they had close to 300 projects, right, in different domains. And all of these projects had a very different process flow on the defect. They had, I mean, the defect life cycle was very different. The kind of fields that they were using were different. The values within the field were very different, right? So there was this whole exercise of consolidating all of that together. And now we work with them with one unified template. We have set up an organizational level or an enterprise level dashboard for them, which gives you very, very clear matrices on understanding how the project is faring, is green, red, amber, what, right? And where is that I need to focus on? So that is the kind of measure, and that is the kind of reporting that is desired right now. The last 2 points that you see here on the graph are very closely related. It's all about the culture and people, right? So we need to foster a culture where people understand the importance of quality, and they own and take the accountability of quality and act as a community rather than different entities. So, like I was saying, yeah, quality cannot just be one team's responsibility. It needs to be everybody's responsibility, because the quality team or the testing team can only look at it once that error has creeped into that product. But if you build that quality first mindset, if you take the accountability of driving the quality goals that you've set up for yourself, you would be able to produce such kind of a code or a product or a system wherein you probably really don't need to do a lot of testing work if you've already taken care of it, right? Now that we understand the trends in the industry, the next question is, what do we recommend, right, for a post-pandemic world? How can we be ready for it? The first recommendation, and I think many of the analysts have talked about it. So some of these would be something which is a repetition, but still it makes sense to restate that. So first of the recommendations, and the key one, is to be better prepared for business continuity, right? We know that there would be problems. We know that we will still need to continue with our business. So we need to ensure that the business continuity plans that we have, the failover testing plans, or the failover testing strategy that we have, it cannot be taken for granted anymore. It was considered more like a tick in the box earlier, but now it is time that we take an accountability on that and be ready for what can hit us next. All applications, and I repeat, all business critical applications. When we say business critical applications, what we say is applications, which are user facing. Not just that, but underlying applications which are really supporting those business critical applications also need to have a very, very clear focus on, from the QA and testing coverage. The next recommendation is to focus more on security, of course, because there is a rise in remote working, there is a rise in people working from home, so much of data being transferred, very, very sensitive and confidential data being transferred. And in general, if you look at the past, you would see that in the last few months, since this whole work from home concept has started, we've shown it has shown, the reports show that there is a significant increase in the number of cyber threats and attacks. Hence, security of applications data becomes very, very critical, and it is time to get serious about it. And not just security, but the other aspects that I was talking about, the usability or the performance, the compatibility also becomes very important, and the organizations must take them very seriously. I would not want to use an application wherein my data could be compromised, right? So I would rather compromise on the user experience than the data security. So security is something that needs to be taken extremely seriously by all the organizations. And if somebody is becoming a little paranoid about it, that's absolutely okay, because it's better to be safe than sorry. The third recommendation is not to cut corners, but repurpose the cost savings to drive accelerated transformation, not just in the QA space, but for IT as a whole, right? Of course, there is an impact on the global economy, there is an impact on our businesses, everybody is suffering. So there is definitely a push or a pressure to cut down the costs, right? Now, organizations need to look at this time as an opportunity to strengthen their business continuity and resilience practices and promoting the new ways of working rather than just looking at a short term objective of saving costs. The last but not the least, very, very important, is to continue using the best practices that we adopted during this period. Now, human mind is something which gets back to the old ways or old habits very, very quickly. So we tend to forget what we went through and we come back to the old practices. But what we are recommending here is that the organization have during this whole um, disruption that happened, organizations have realized that there are some good practices. For example, you can cut down on the travel cost, you can cut down on the unnecessary infrastructure cost, and then focus more on building a very, very good and a clean remote working environment for your teams, right? So those are the things that we suggest that you continue and not, and basically strengthen them to make them more robust. Now, you heard about the industry trends, you heard about the recommendations that we have. Now, the question is, what can you do? What can you do in order to start this journey of making your organization more and more resilient? So, the first thing is, and it's a very easy plan that you can put it in picture. So one is you first create the right ecosystem. There is a cultural conditioning aspect associated to it, right? Like I said, every organization has a business continuity plan. Every organization thinks of themselves to be business resilient, but when you look at the underlying culture within the organization, it is very difficult to see that what the management thinks and what is actually shown is very different, right? So there is this whole cultural conditioning aspect that comes into picture, wherein you need to train your people, you need to ensure that they have the right mindsets and they understand how important it is for your business to be resilient, right? You need to identify your sponsors, you need to identify your key champions, people who will talk about this every single time they get into a strategic meeting or get into a session, right? Because this is something that needs to be beaten to death. This is something that needs to be brought out in every conversation that we have at a strategic level. So it needs to have the right focus. Then the next one is to define the processes, the governance framework. How do you communicate? What are the basic processes which will help you? What kind of tools you require? What are the different resources? So once you have this whole ecosystem created, then you have the right holistic environment to prepare and plan for making your organization more resilient. Now, what you need to do is identify, the first and the foremost, identify the business critical applications and processes, right? So look at each and every application. Do you really require that? If you require that, then is it critical? If it is critical, how critical it is, right? And which are the key processes within your application that need to be considered really, really critical? Now, for each of these applications, you need to identify the points of failure. We know, I mean, we are as strong as the weakest link of the chain, right? So identify the weak links, identify the points of failure. Is it performance? Is it security? Is it the integration points between two systems? What is it that you think if it fails, it will become a very, very big challenge for you, right? Once you have these two identification, this identified, what you need to do is you need to assess the resilience maturity of your system, right? So understand whether you have the right plan. If your weak link fails, what do you want to do? How will you get it back up, right? So assess the resilience maturity of your system. Try and see if you have the right strategy in place in order to ensure that you will be able to, come back and bounce back. The last step is execute and refine. So you have the plan, you've got the resources, you have the people. What you have to do is, in a controlled environment, try and induce the issues. Observe how your system responds, right? Is it the right response? Is it a response that you would have desired? Or are there some gaps? If you identify gaps, which is good because it is telling you that there is something that you still need to work on, you need to refine your strategy and plans. You need to go back, look at your strategy, look at something, how you can, take care of that particular gap that you have in your strategy, right? And the most important thing is you keep on testing and reviewing it frequently, like, right? You don't do it just once and then sit tight and wait for the next disruption to happen. Define a particular cadence at which you would like to review it frequently. So maybe it could be a monthly, for some applications, it could be quarterly, right? So, based on the criticality, based on the resources that you have on hand, ensure that you have a regular cadence on which you audit this, you keep on reviewing it frequently, and you keep on refining it frequently. Once you have this, I'm sure you will be much prepared for anything that could hit you or your business, because like I was saying, you cannot prevent anything. If it has to happen, it will happen. Today it's COVID, tomorrow it's going to be something else. But what you can do is you can be prepared, and you can be confident that in case something hits you, you will be able to bounce back, you will be able to become more resilient, and you will be able to give to our customer what they desire in terms of the uptime, in terms of the availability of the system, and everything that they require to be satisfied and happy. So I think that was all. I am probably at the end of the time of my session also, but I really want to leave you with this note that I hope that we meet in person next year, and we can share some stories, and you can share some journey about how you could make your business more resilient using the capabilities. Thank you all, and stay safe.
Yeah, thank you, Lisha. And there is one question, of course, which has come in from the audience, and we have around 3 minutes to answer that question.
Okay.
And the question is very interesting. The systems can be resilient, the processes can be resilient. We can certainly put up everything in place. But the challenge in these kind of COVID times is, making sure that the team has the relevant skills to perform. Okay,
Absolutely.
because the challenge always is, even a regular classroom, if you were to train people, they are not so addicted to learning, right? They're not
Right.
so keen to develop unless there is a pressure. Now, with the remote work environment and the remote world out there, how can an organization, build their resilience from a skill perspective? That's the question from the audience, Lisha.
That's a very, very good question. And I did not really touch upon it during my presentation because it was covered as part of the people aspect. But you're very right, right? You can have state of art processes, you can have awesome tools, and you can have the whole ecosystem. But the maximum potential or your weak link could be your people. If your people are not upskilled or trained, or they don't understand, right, then everything is futile. All the effort and investment that you put into building your business as more resilient goes down the drain. So what I think is, in general, people have become more aware, right? And I'll tell you what we do at Capgemini. We give people the ownership of their career, right? What we do is we build that whole ecosystem. We tell them these are the user journeys, or this is the learning journey that you can have, right? And if you want to, for example, if you want to become an architect, right? If you want to take the automation path, this is what you can do. These are the stages. And we give that whole decision making power with people, right? Because, like I was saying, there is this responsibility or an accountability aspect that comes into picture, right? So if you give somebody the accountability, they will take the ownership, right? So that is what we do at Capgemini. We give it to them. We let them decide what they want to do. You can become a test manager. You want to become an architect. You want to become an SME in the security testing domain. It is completely up to you. What we will do is we will ensure that you have the right resources, right channels, right model, people who can mentor you. So that is the environment that we create, and I think that is what every organization should do. They should create the environment. End of the day, it is up to the person whether they really want to take that opportunity and upskill themselves, or they want to become obsolete and not become resilient.
I know. Yeah, finally, the ecosystem should have some dinosaurs and should have some cockroaches as well, which can
Absolutely.
adapt and survive, and which can also remain huge and not survive. That also is a possibility. And I think
Exactly.
that's a lovely thought to leave everyone with. And thanks a lot, Lisha, and thanks for joining early in the morning with us, and really appreciate your sharing your views. And certainly next year we should meet in person, and then we should have this conference physically, possible. Hopefully the June
Absolutely.
vaccine everyone talking about, we should
Yeah,
be able
I
to travel.
I saw some people messaging yesterday on the comment box that they're missing the tea and coffee. So yes, next time probably with the tea, coffee, and the cookies.
I'm having it mine. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you
Perfect.
very much, Pradeep. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. Pleasure having you here. Okay.